Insurance people, what is the most outrageous claim you have ever seen? There was the story about a guy who bought a box of really expensive cigars. He insured them against pretty much every possible accident: theft, fire, natural disaster, etc. Later, having smoked all the cigars, he filed an insurance claim, claiming that the cigars were destroyed in a series of small fires. The insurance company lost the court case and was forced to pay the man something like $20,000. They then sued the man for arson. I started off in claims for a major home insurance brand in NZ. Client calls in and says our bed broke. Without approximate cause, I can't lodge a claim, and if it's wear and tear, there is no claim since that isn't covered. The conversation goes around in circles for a while longer, and eventually they ask to go to a supervisor. Fortunately, the sup is my friend sitting behind me, so I get to hear his end of call. They were having group sex on the bed, 5 people. A 6th person decided to join the festivities, and that is when the bed broke. Acceptable and paid claim. I used to work for a fire/water damage restoration company. We show up to a water damage job. Turns out, this guy is trying to turn his 1-story house into a 2-story house and has hired some Amish guys to do the job. At this point, pretty much the entire house is roofless, as in, you look up anywhere from inside the house and see sky. When the Amish dudes finished working the day before, they didn't cover up the house. It rained that night, soaked the entire inside of the house. Insurance covered it. So we spend the day cutting and pulling out soaking wet carpet while the Amish continued working above. I shit you not, they don't cover the house again, and it rains again. Insurance covered that too. We talked to the adjuster, and she just had this defeated look on her face. The claim was in the $100,000s, and she said these people were basically getting a new house. Haven't seen that much stupidity rewarded that well in a long time. The upside though, after the second night, they started covering up the house. Obligatory, not an insurance person, but friend of the family was. Heard this story some 20 years ago, so might also be a fib told to kids. Guy had his car insured for all kinds of things, and there was a pretty intense hailstorm a few years ago. His car was in the garage, but since it was quite old, he thought he could cash in by hammering his car with a rubber hammer. Did so all over, but was too lazy to climb on top to hammer and dent on his car roof. So then he had the brilliant idea to just hammer the roof from the inside. It might be a surprise, but he didn't get any money. I handle public liability claims for various agencies and large corporate firms. Had a couple who tried to claim from the park management agency for pain and suffering from mosquito bites. They were having a picnic in the park. This is in Asia, by the way, where mosquitoes are a daily occurrence. Also had someone try to claim for injuries sustained from tripping over an uneven tile outside of a shopping mall. CCTV footage from our client, the mall, revealed he had clearly noticed the tile, looked around to see if anyone was watching, then threw himself on the ground. This makes me so mad. A few years ago, I slipped in a grocery store because there was yogurt on the ground, really hurt my hip, and is still screwed to this day. I was so embarrassed that I had yogurt all over me, quickly paid for my groceries, and walked out. Biggest regret of my life. I work in auto insurance. In our town, collision with wildlife is fairly common, and the deductible on your insurance is waived as long as the estimator can confirm that wildlife was the cause. This is usually done by just advising the claimant not to wash the vehicle prior to attending their appointment, so that the estimator can view the point of impact for proof: hair, blood, etc. Well, one gentleman called in and had already washed his car. When he was advised that if we can't confirm wildlife is the cause, he may have to pay his deductible to have his repairs done, he was having none of it. So he showed up to his estimate with a freaking dead deer in his trunk. I wish I was making this up. Not insurance, but a warranty claim. I had someone claim their DVD disk drive was faulty. They didn't hit the eject button properly. Of course, they had tried to pry it open with a knife. When they failed, they tried to lube it up with butter from the kitchen. Then they tried to claim the physical damage to the outside of the drive under warranty. When I declined them, they called back and tried to claim the agent told them to do it. Unlucky for them, they got me twice. As a call center rep, those repeat calls are the best. Actually, sir, you just spoke to me, and I told you no such thing. Is one of my favorite things to say. Oh my gosh, my time to shine. I once had a claim where our insureds were attacked by their neighbor's cow. The neighbor actually moved quite a while ago, but forgot one of the cows. Now when a cow is starving/dehydrated, I guess they go crazy/insane, which is what happened to this one. Our insured was standing outside, getting his mail, when the cow began charging at him. He ran to his door, but the cow beat him to it and ran inside with our insured. Our insured wife then attempted to help get the cow away and was apparently inured in the process. Cow caused damages to the home and injuries. Lesson is, don't forget your cows when you move. friend story, but anyway, received a claim for robbery and had to go and do the assessment. Basically, considerable loss, etc., etc. However, the claimant had a terrace property with a pool above the height of the house. They found that the pool was empty, with all the possessions packed neatly in the pool. Lesson: at least remove the goods from the property before claiming. An acquaintance is an adjuster in marine insurance. He gets a claim for a total loss on a $1.9 million yacht. Apparently, the boat was too deep to try and salvage. He thought it was odd that only the owner was on board when it sunk and was rescued by CG. So he contracts a company who has an ROV sub to dive down and check the wreck. Well, as it turns out, the boat was completely stripped. Even stuff that couldn't have floated away like TVs and appliances. Presented the owner with video evidence and rejected the claim. TLDR, if you're going to scuttle your own boat, do it over the Mariana Trench. I'm new to the game, but this one sticks out. Got a claim for a building fire, total loss, looking at about $1 million. For a smallish company, those claims are a big deal, but they happen. It's why we have reinsurance LOL. Have the adjuster look at it, and get a fire expert in HVAC effort because the cause was a broiler. If it's the manufacturer, there may be potential subrogation. We get the money back by going after whoever was at fault. Turns out this thing was jerry-rigged as fuck to stay on after the safety shut off. And who did the jerry-rigging? The son of the insured who happened to be a plumber. So now, if they follow through on the claim, she'll get paid, but we'll go after her son for Subaru, and his plumber insurance likely won't cover it. They cover negligence, but this was done purposefully, even if there wasn't malicious intent. Fun stuff. Okay, obligatory. I don't work in insurance, but my sister does/did, and she told me one time a client called to insure his dirt bike under contents insurance. For those who don't know what contents insurance is, it's pretty much for the shit inside your house that you use and have. So my sister replied, "Sir, do you use your bike inside the home?" And apparently the guy on the other line casually says, "Yeah, I got a dirt track in the backyard." So my sister had no clue if this guy was telling the truth, and she had to transfer him to some special department. Apparently, they search his home up on Google Maps. Edit. She had to transfer before. Had a claim where a guy was claiming injury, saying he was a passenger in a car which my insured backed into at a stoplight. Leaving aside the obvious question, who backs up at a stoplight? His case wasn't helped by the fact that both my insured and the person whose car the injured party claims he was in both deny this accident ever occurred. Lesson learned: if you're going to attempt insurance fraud, make sure at least one of the other involved people has your back. I actually had that happen at a red light. Chick in front of me realized she needed to be in the turning lane and tried to back up. Former claims call center worker here. Had a shop call us up one day because they were working on a claimant's car. Our policyholder rear-ended them. The guy dropped off the car for repairs, and apparently it smelled just god-awful. So they opened up the trunk, and sure enough, human dead body wrapped in blankets. Dude had a dead body in his car and took it in for repairs. Worst part was, we still had to pay to fix the car. That was a fun conversation to have with our adjuster handling the claim, because even our internal calls were recorded for legal reasons, so we had to be careful with what we said to each other. Insurance broker here. Employment practices liability claim came in a few years ago for a small law firm. The main lawyer had 3 female assistants that he would regularly get them to dress up in his wife's clothes and make them compete in weird contests. Example, he would tie them to a chair, and whoever got out would get a $100 gift card to Starbucks or wherever. Nothing was reported for 2 years, since I figured the assistants didn't mind it too much, until the wife found out who actually worked at the law firm as well. Then all 3 filed harassment claims. I just couldn't believe how long it took the wife to figure it out. Not an insurance, but a friend of my wife's was in a car crash, and by mistake emailed the list of items apparently damaged in the car crash to my wife instead of the insurance company. I printed the list out, and it was nearly 2 pages long. It had things like a widescreen TV, aircon units, custom Nike trainers. How did they get damaged? The list would have filled a small truck. She claimed she was moving house, which is why it was all in her car. 2 things though, somehow all this was destroyed, but the car wasn't a write-off, it was just a fender bender. She drives a Miata? They paid out. During Hurricane Sandy, many people purposely parked their vehicles where they knew obvious water damage would warrant a claim. One guy decided to hop on the train, but was extremely nervous about the outcome. He apparently thought dumping cans of sardines in the car would give it the appearance that salt water washed throughout the car. No. I'm an account handler at a Lloyd's broker in the city. One of my client's employees, this is a waste haulage company, took a JCB out on a Saturday and took his son with him. When the employee got out of the vehicle to check on the site, his son put the thing in a drive and ran his dad over. Also, another one of my clients, piling contractor, drew up faulty plans and bored a huge drill in an old street tube station from the street. Luckily, an empty train spotted it before a commuter one sped through. Not outrageous in the claim, but funny way of getting caught. An agency I worked at had a workman's comp claim where a woman claimed to have back/neck problems from a fall and unable to move. An adjuster called her into the office and asked if she wanted to recant her story. She was outraged that he would question her honesty. He then showed her the front page of her small-town newspaper, where she was on the cover dancing at a local festival. Underwriter here received a general liability submission for a nursing home that operated as an adult daycare facility. Their loss runs indicated a multi-million-dollar claim settlement from the incoming carrier. Upon inquiring on said loss, we came to find out that a patient at this facility went missing for close to 5 hours. No one had bothered to look for this person, and he was only found after a nurse heard moaning from one of the kitchen pantry closets. The patient apparently was suffering from some kind of episode and locked himself in, and had nearly consumed an entire 2-pound bag of porcini mushrooms, causing intestinal blockage and requiring a trip to the emergency room. Needless to say, we declined on that submission. I had a lady light her house on fire and then walk up the street to go get pizza. Her neighbor called it in, but the house was 1800s and burned to a total loss. The lady started acting really crazy in our office. She flashed a handgun a few times and said she was afraid for her life because her family was all connected to the family. The adjusters came out, and there was a bunch of evidence showing the fire was arson. The lady eventually confessed, but then fled down to Florida, and last I knew was on the run from the cops and insurance company. The craziest part about the whole thing? Corporate was worried after she disappeared, and so they hired a private security guard company for our small office for 10 days. This guy who looked like the old guy from the Pixar movie Up, and with a gun like Dirty Harry's, came and sat in our waiting room for 2 weeks. I think he was asleep more than awake. He drooled a couple times on his shirt. We felt very secure. The lady never showed up. My mom works in insurance. She said that she had a man come in one day to buy a 2-week permit for his car. He said, and my mom confirmed this when she looked up his account, that he has been in so many accidents and racked up so many points on his record that his insurance costs about $40,000 per year, so it's cheaper for him to insure his car 2 weeks at a time. I'm an insurance agent in a smaller community, and we insure many rural homes. A few years ago, a guy came in and said he was attacked by his neighbor's cock, Rooster, and that we insure the neighbor and he wanted to file a claim against him. So we call our insured, and he says that he's seen the rooster in his pasture, but it's wild, and he doesn't own it. He's also seen it on the neighbor's land just as much as his own. We tell the guy this, and he goes irate. He's screaming his cock attacked me. It lives on his land, so it's his. He goes on like this for 20 minutes, and probably says cock 50 times. It was really hard to not bust out laughing. Obviously, our insured doesn't want to file a claim, and the guy says he's going to sue him. I guess his lawyer talked some sense into him, because nothing else happened. This guy, Sammy, claimed to have suffered a brain injury that made it so he couldn't form new memories. Except, after a battery of psychological tests and aversion therapy, he began avoiding certain blocks that were electrified. Since if his injury was legitimate, he wouldn't be able to form this kind of memory through repetition. I determined he was faking it. I got a big bonus, and his wife got stuck with the medical bills. Former dental insurance rep/examiner here. This poor older lady had gotten all of her teeth pulled and replaced with implants, at least $2,000 a pop. She did this all in a couple of visits. When we got the claim, we paid the yearly max of $1,500. She expected us to pay the whole $30,000 or so, since she had not used her insurance over the last few years. I was very sad to explain that this is not how insurance works, and that we were not a savings account. Remember, you are responsible to know your benefits. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love.